Well, ladies and gentlemen, over the past 24 hours, the SEC has officially appealed the court's decision in regards to the SEC versus Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, and of course, Chris Larsen. What does this all mean? Well, hopefully we're going to be giving you some answers to that question during the course of this video. So we're going to be breaking it all down. There's been some great news for XRP over the past 48 hours with Bitwise filing for an XRP ETP over in Delaware. And then, of course, there's been some very negative news. And, of course, the price has largely followed this news. There's lots of speculation, and we're going to look at it during the course of this video in regards to how long this is now going to take to be resolved or to get resolved. And we're going to take a look from one individual that's talking about this getting resolved now due to the legal process that it's about to embark on in 2026. Now, I'm not sure how confident I am of that in regards to the timeline that's been put forward, but it is certainly a take that we will be looking at. We're really going to be starting the video off by looking at a number of takes. Of course, first of all, looking at the actual appeal against Ripple Labs Incorporated, Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larsen. Then we'll be looking at what Brad Garlinghouse has to say on all this. Of course, Stuart Aldultry, the chief legal officer over at Ripple. We're going to be looking at what Jeremy Hogan, somebody that's been very vocal about this whole thing, has to say. And then we're going to be looking at a timeline out there that has been put forward by an individual who is an attorney, a litigator, a trial law individual called Fred Rispoli. Maybe Italian there. I'm not quite sure. But he's essentially putting forward an argument. Let's just take a look at this, because what would this mean? You know, he's essentially putting forward an argument that a ruling will be handed down from the Second Circuit in January 2026 at the earliest, likely March or April, though. So it's a real inconvenience. And then the last thing that we're going to do once we've gone through everything, once we've provided that clarity, is talk about our XRP price prediction and where does this leave us? Are we still on track for that $19.27 that we're eagerly eyeing up? And I personally hold XRP, and ultimately, just straight off the bat, still believe that the price prediction that we've got, providing we can take that 94 cents mark, is going to play out. And I do truly believe this, and this is why we make a video on XRP. I truly believe XRP is going to play a fundamental role in the future that we're moving towards, this globalist future that we're moving towards, and distributed ledgers, unfortunately, are enabling that. And XRP, I think, is going to play a key role. If you look at the partnerships that they've got globally, there's not nothing here, ladies and gentlemen. There's something, and the SEC is really just hindering it. And is this all about keeping retail out? There's a zealous community of XRP holders. Are they trying to beat them to a pulp in order to get them to capitulate so that the typical crowd can benefit from a kind of revolution, a tech revolution as sort? So we've got a lot to get into, guys. Let's dive into it. Let's start the video off with a little bit of good news in regards to what we saw over the past 48 hours. Now, today we filed an initial registration statement on Form S1 for a new Bitwise XRP ETP. Not an ETF, an ETP. This is significant. Great news. If the SEC hadn't decided to appeal, you'd have complete legal clarity in regards to Ripple, Brad, Chris, and, of course, XRP. And I want to make this clear. XRP has been classified as a non-security. This is official. And that's not what this appeal is over. In my opinion, let me just give you my 2 cents on this appeal. I didn't think they were going to appeal, personally, because of what came out over the past couple of weeks in regards to the SEC officially saying that crypto assets aren't what they were referring to as the security. So the cryptos themselves aren't securities. They made that statement. They said that they used crypto asset securities as a shorthand, and they'd been very clear about the whole matter from the beginning, which is just total nonsense. Also, on the back end of this, I think it was about half an hour before or after the appeal in regards to this case was made, the head of enforcement over at the SEC actually stepped down. I don't know if there's some sort of a link there, but why are they doing this? Well, I think it's because they can, and there's no negative repercussions to them for doing so, other than embarrassment, which they've already seen lots of in regards to this case. The SEC is a government agency, which means they don't have to pick up the bill, and that's what's wrong with government bodies. Is they essentially have the SEC has one reason the SEC has such a high conviction rate is because they have an unlimited resource, and they know they can put that financial strain on companies. And Ripple, who knows what the tune of the sort of bills that they've had to put in to fight this off of their own back. They don't get government funded to do all this. And the SEC really has nothing to lose at this point. They've already lost. Why not appeal it and see what happens? That's what this is all about. And they're ultimately probably trying to go for more money. And really, the SEC, an agency who's there at the behest of supposedly you guys, the consumers, is doing the exact opposite in this case. I'm disappointed, really, to be honest. I hold XRP. The XRP community has been through nothing but persecution from the sort of TradFi sector in regards to people that are zealously trying to keep it the way it is because they have interests in it. And actually the crypto space, I feel like, XRP is that real dark horse that it's going to have its day in the sun, but there's a lot of persecution that I think is going to come with that. And we'll talk about that when we get into a little bit of price action. So we had some great news in regards to the ETP. I think, again, the SEC is just largely doing this because they can. They don't have anything to lose by doing this. This, of course, was the official appeal, and this is from the United States District Court, Southern District of New York, Securities and Exchange Commission, against Ripple Labs Incorporated, Brad Garlinghouse, and Chris Larson. Notice to appeal the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and we'll get into what that's likely going to entail in just a second. Please take notice. The Plaintiff Securities and Exchange Commission hereby respectfully appeals to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit from the final judgment entered by this court on August the 7th, 2024. It's an annoyance, but in life, and I don't need to tell you guys this, you roll with the punches. This is from Brad Garlinghouse. If Gensler and the SEC were rational, they would have moved on from this case long ago. It certainly hasn't protected investors and instead has damaged the credibility and reputation of the SEC. Somehow, they still haven't gotten the message. They lost on everything that matters. Ripple, the crypto industry, and the rule of law have already prevailed. While we'll fight in court for as long as we need to, and then the worry is how long is all this going to take, let's be clear. XRP status as a non-security is the law of the land today. And that does not change, even in the face of this misguided and infuriating appeal. Remember, when the SEC tried unsuccessfully to file a interlocutory appeal, they made clear they had no intention of challenging XRP's status as a non-security. And he goes over to Stuart Aldaltry's tweet on this. The SEC decision to appeal is disappointing, but not surprising. This just prolongs what's already a complete embarrassment for the agency. The court already rejected the SEC suggestion that Ripple acted recklessly and that there were no allegations of fraud. And of course, there were no victims or losses. The SEC is creating more victims than anybody. Instead of faithfully applying the law, this agency under the chair continued to engage in litigation warfare against the industry. We are evaluating whether to file a cross appeal. Either way, the SEC's lawsuit has been irrational and misguided from the start, and we're ready to prove that yet again in this appellate court. Once again, taking the lead for the industry. And this is important not just for Ripple, Brad and Chris and XRP and the community, but the industry as a whole. This is a fight back against an agency that has been nothing short of unfair when it comes to this industry. And we've seen that time and time again. Coincidence that the SEC enforcement director announced his resignation about an hour before this? ? I think there's likely some sort of a link there. This is an individual I'm unfamiliar with. The SEC appeal is pure blunder and will separate the 1% from the entire population with a poor mindset. Nothing has changed for Ripple and XRP. And that's right. Remember that throughout all of this, guys. They're still in the pretty much exact same situation that they were. even when we look at XRP's price, it's really just where it was a couple of weeks ago. And people need to zoom out when it comes to looking at the charts. However, I think this is a blow to the entire community. If you're still trying to accumulate XRP, perhaps this is a blessing in disguise. So the price is not dependent on this lawsuit, as we analysed before. Thank you, Attorney Jeremy, for your insight. I think the price is not dependent, but certainly heavily affected by the lawsuit. I don't think there's anybody that would deny that. And the price, I think, has been hindered, potentially not determined, or perhaps even determined by the lawsuit. So this is, of course, Jeremy Hogan. He's been very vocal on this entire thing. I can't remember what his YouTube channel is. I'm sure someone will point it out in the description. Good guy to follow, actually. Initial thoughts on the SEC appeal. Big mistake by the SEC. It will appeal the programmatic sales ruling, and if it wins, it will get more money from Ripple and have protected no one. Ripple will raise its blue sky law issue, and if it wins, the SEC's ability to regulate the entire crypto space is essentially destroyed. Not a good calculation of risk by the SEC. It would make a poor stock trader. They'd make poor regulators, let alone stock traders at this point, I'm afraid. So not a good... so number two, so that was his thought number one. This is an appeal by right, not like when the SEC tried to appeal before. The trial judge can't reject the appeal. So there's no rejection. They did try and appeal unsuccessfully before. This is something that it now has to happen, unfortunately, for the sort of people involved in this. So the SEC is very, very likely to lose, both statistically and based on the fact-heavy way the judge wrote her opinion. Even if the SEC were to win, on appeal, it's very, very likely just a matter of money. Nothing would change as XRP and it's used by Ripple. Number four, in a couple weeks, we'll know what issues the SEC is appealing, because we don't even know what they're saying they're appealing for at the moment. And then it must file a first brief by mid-October. It will not and cannot be appealed, appealing that XRP is not a security. Importantly, watch for whether the SEC is appealing the injunction. Number five, a ruling from the appellate court won't happen until late 2025, early 2026. And this is the frustration here. Is this just a plan to get this out of retail's hands at this point? And know that retail play a very different game to what institutions play. We'll look at the Amazon chart again in just a second. I posted it would take until summer 2025 a couple of months ago. I was wrong about that. Sorry. I refuse to believe that Attorney Grewal announcing he's leaving the SEC the same day the appeal is filed is just by chance. But I'm kooky like that. Interesting. The only hope of this all being over sooner is there is new leadership at the SEC, which I do think if Trump becomes president might be quite likely. If Trump becomes president again, I will humbly accept the role of Director of Enforcement and focus the agency on protecting you from scams, fraud and fees, which the SEC doesn't do. I mean, just look at the Terra case. Who was the only person that got paid off in regards to the Terra case? The SEC, they got billions out of it. I don't need to tell you that the world is a corrupt one. You already know. And the US, unfortunately, I've got to say this, UK is no better. My own native country. Europe's, we're all corrupt, I'm afraid, guys. People always try and make the distinction between one corruption and another. Let's look at a timeline from another take. So Jeremy Hogan there talking about 2026, end of 2025. Here's another individual, Fred Rispoli. For the XRP holders, here is the SEC versus Ripple appellate timeline. The SEC's brief likely due right about December. So he's got the 2nd of December. SEC will likely to seek permissible 30-day extension. So it'll be due shortly after the 1st of 2025, the 1st of January 2025. Ripple will cross appeal. Its open brief will be due around the same time. The opposition brief will likely be due around January 2025. Ripple will likely take its extension. Taking that to March 2025, reply brief will likely be due by the end of March 2025. An oral argument will be scheduled for sometime in September, October 2025. A ruling will be handed down from the Second Circuit in January 2026. At the earliest, likely March or April, though. And then the timeline for ending up at the Supreme Court, 1 to 5 years to that. And of course, new congressional law or something like that, a rebuttal from Congress or new management change could change this. But this is not great, is it, at all? It's not good news. It's not what anybody wants to hear. The question I have to ask as an investor in this asset, what does this now mean for me? Is everything that we've looked at gone out the window? And I don't think it has. I think this is just a setback. But the comeback, ladies and gentlemen, is always bigger than the setback. This is what we're looking at, and we've stressed this to death. Essentially here, what we're essentially banking on, and there was a smaller pattern that's been totally invalidated at this point, is a repeat of what led to 2017. I believe this is what I would identify as a HVF. There's only one person you'll ever learn the HVF method from, and that is Francis Hunt. Do go and check him out, the Market Sniper and the Reset Sniper and the Crypto Sniper, of course. Phenomenal when it comes to technical analysis, second to none in my opinion, and not just an amazing technical analysis, an amazing guy generally. Ultimately, and he's given price predictions on this also, we think this is going to result in likely a $19.27 price prediction, or thereabouts. There was a smaller pattern here that has now been invalidated with this slam down on the back end of this. But I want people to remember this. You're higher today than you were a month ago, the month before that, and the month before that, despite the face of adversary. And this pattern is still very, very much intact. It wouldn't be if you, I wouldn't say wouldn't be, but it would be, we'd be looking at something different if you certainly ran this low here. And if you look at how things sort of progressed here, there was lots of sort of bouncing around off what has held you as support and is still holding you as support and likely going to act as support once again. The market's down generally at the moment. Ultimately, this news is just amplifying it, and it's a shame. And, you know, I can't help but feel like I'm pretty confident in regards to what XRP is going to do to the world, the fundamental role it's going to play, and the wealth that it's going to generate as a result of that. And they don't want retail being a part of that and taking part in that. And I can't help but feel like, is this some sort of a trap for retail to just basically fatigue them out of the market? Is this just something that gets ended? I think the main concern is, does this drag on to 2025, 2026? Or does this get ended sporadically? And that's what sees this sort of spike-like movement that we're potentially looking for to trigger everything that we're looking at technically. That's it from me, guys. We'll keep you up to date on this. We are hoping, very much so, we are currently looking to employ a researcher, a writer, potentially to do a little bit of co-hosting with me every now and then. And once we get somebody like that on board, we'll be able to take our content, including XRP and Ripple content, to that next level and bring you that real alpha in regards to it, above and beyond what we're already doing. So do stay tuned for that. There is also a link if anybody's interested in applying for that job. Lots of applicants, very excited about it all. But that's it from me, guys. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. What are you going to do? We've got to deal with it. We've got to roll with the punches. Ultimately, we don't think this changes our sort of macro view on where we think XRP is going from a price point of view, or fundamentally the role that it's going to play in the world that we're moving towards. That's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Thanks for watching, guys. See you all in the next one.